Welcome back to I'm a Mom, What Else, the podcast where we share inspiring stories of remarkable women who has been impacting positively in this world. And today I have a very special guest. She has embarked on a journey of self-discovery and intentional life. Please welcome Jeneen.
Hi, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and really taking the time to share such inspiring story. Yeah, so can you please share with us a little bit of a background?
Sure, of course. So I guess it probably started when I'm from Canada originally, and I took a holiday. It was kind of a last minute holiday with a friend of mine, and we came to Bali. And it was a bit of a culture shock. It was the first time I had traveled overseas. And yeah, it was a really challenging trip. There was a lot of new things for me and really seeing things from another perspective. And when I went back to Canada, I really had this feeling like there was more to see in the world. There was more to experience, there was more to see. And so I decided to quit my job. I sold my place, sold my car, and I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok.
Wow, and when you came to Bali, was your first trip abroad?
It was my first trip abroad.
Wow, so it really has a big impact.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I found really like a lot of my senses were challenged, like the sounds and the smells being in Asia, hearing another language.
That's completely different.
Yeah. It was really, now when I think back to it, it was really a remarkable experience having that chance to see something so different. And yes, had a big impact on me for sure.
Yeah, I remember my first trip abroad. I'm from Brazil.
Yeah.
And I went to Switzerland. It's also a completely different world.
Yeah.
Still being the Western, it was still very different. All like the transport and everything working on time. It was such a transformative experience for me. And I really wanted to explore more.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to see where it is next.
Yeah.
And how was it for you?
Yeah, very similar experience. Yeah, just really opening my eyes to seeing another way of living, another culture, other languages, seeing the religious parts of it, the offerings, the people, just how they were and how they lived and what they did every day. Yeah, it made me super curious about what else there was in the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then you went back to Canada and you decided to quit your job.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to come back to Bali. You want then to explore Thailand. Huh?
Well, it was my trip to Bangkok was supposed to be the start of my world tour. So I spent about just over a month in Bangkok or in Thailand. And then I had a friend that was in Bali and he said, oh, I rented a villa for a year. Would you like to take 6 months? And I thought, oh, okay, that's a good next move, thinking that I would stop and then continue on. And so I stopped and then I never left.
Was then you met your...
Yeah, I met my husband on the first trip, but in a very friend kind of way. Like he toured us around and he shared a lot of the culture with us. And when I left, I thought, well, like that was nice. I'll probably never see him again. And then when I came back the second time, I was actually at the grocery store and I ran into him. And then he was obviously very surprised because we hadn't kept in touch. And then that's where we started talking. And at the time, he was a designer and he was designing handbags. And so I had him make one for me. And then I had friends that were over visiting, and then they made one for him. She made one for her, and then the other friends, and then that turned into our first business.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But then you stayed in Bali, or you decided to go to somewhere else and keep your plans to do your work too.
Yeah, no, my plans got trashed and I stayed in Bali and that was it.
Well, it's not a bad choice.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah, and can you share with us how has been your life in Bali since you made the decision to make this place your home?
Yeah, I think it's been challenging in many ways and so extremely rewarding in many ways. I think Bali is a place that it challenges you in the ways that you need it. I mean, people here kind of always say, well, Mother Bali will teach that to you. And I think it does. Like, it really taught me to slow down and to really live in the moment and really appreciate the things around. Though coming from a Western culture, it was really hard to slow down. It was really hard to get used to the idea of like things not working on time. So yeah, as a business, it was super challenging because it didn't work in the same ways as I was used to. But that's how we grow, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
and
how.
it's your husband Balinese or
He's from Java, so the next
okay.
island over. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can resonate with what you said. I think most of foreigners here,
Yeah.
obviously it's not gonna be like home,
Yeah.
but it's from both sides, huh?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that work better than here, but on the other hand, there are so many things that work much better than in our home country, right?
Yes. And I think that was one of my biggest learnings from living abroad is that you come with this idea of how you've been taught and how you've been brought up is a right way. And then I really started to realize that, wow, there's so many other ways. And yeah, like you said, there's some that, are a real improvement. Like the slowing down bit, I think is probably one of the biggest ones for me.
Yeah, and also aligning yourself and all your beliefs and open up to learn and grow with a completely different mindset and culture, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah.
I see that everybody who comes to not just Bali, but to anywhere else that is completely different from your background, learn a lot and at the end become more respectful and less judgmental.
Yeah.
How was for you this like coming from this Western background was like it's more Christian and then you're coming to Bali, an Hindu island, but also being married to your husband who comes from a Muslim culture. How it's been like this mixed religious thing?
I think it was just eye-opening. It was really eye-opening to see so many different beliefs and how that affects and changes different parts of your life. Priorities of different religions. And I think it just really opened my eyes a lot and really, I think, just more accepting. I think first it was realizing the differences and how many differences there actually were. And then it was just really accepting that, there's many different ways to do this and there is no right way. We're all just, doing life as in a way that works for us and that we align with and that resonates and just accepting each other and it all kind of working together.
Yeah. I think it's an amazing experience and journey of self-discovery. But how it's been for you, because this podcast is for moms, so you're also a mom.
Yeah.
So how was for you? Did you have plans to have children? How you decided to be a mom and deliver here in Bali?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to have children. I don't think I had a vision of what that looked like, or I didn't really have any expectations of how it would go or what it would be like. We started the business, and then right away I got pregnant. And both of our kids were actually born in Canada. So they had their first 6 months in Canada, but they've lived here since, and they're now teenagers. So they've lived their whole life here. But I think a lot of it was seeing them grow up in this environment, I felt really lucky and really grateful that they were able to see such a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
You know, like their friends were all from different countries and different languages, and the way their houses operated were all different. And I always found it fascinating when they would come home and it'd be like, oh, you know, like what do they eat at their house? And like, you know, how does that work? And, you know, it really gave them a chance to see so much in such a short time that I think their view on the world is just totally different,
Yeah.
which I'm so, so grateful for.
Yeah, I can understand because I have the same feeling when my daughter, the oldest, is 4.
Yeah.
And she comes back from school and she pretends that she's speaking Russian.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, oh, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
And she keeps pretending. And then another day she comes and it's like, oh, because my friend, she's from Spain and she brought this.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like, I don't know. I have lived in different countries in the world. Have been to over 50 countries, but
Yeah.
I have never been to a place where it has this diversity of people, like people from everywhere. I have lived in London, which is a very big city, very cosmopolitan, but Bali is so different. And just being surrounded by people from different backgrounds and countries, but how we get connected, because it's not that we know people or we are in the same place. We are a community. And I think this is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So how it's been for you, raising your children in this environment and going throughout this experience of Bali life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we just started a group called Real Life Storytelling. And this was kind of the idea of really starting to connect and have a really strong community where we can start to learn from each other. What are other people doing? What other lives have they lived? What are places they have lived? Like my kids are teenagers now. So they're thinking about how to explore the world and where do they want to go and what does that look like. And so we started this group, Real Life Storytelling, where we're going to be interviewing people on random topics, just experiences of life, but just to really, so that we can really appreciate that our community is really full of such richness when it comes to, you know, culture and language and people's experiences. Like, it's amazing. Last week, we talked to a Mexican couple, and they were sharing life in Mexico and growing up and kind of where their lives have taken them. And it was interesting because my kids went home and started researching Mexico and like the history of Mexico and, you know, and like you said, it's just, we're surrounded by it. And I think we're really lucky in that way to have access to people that have been and done so many things in their lives. Like, it's really remarkable.
Yeah, you can really explore, like, and you learn so much through other people, through their stories, through their background. And that's why, like, sometimes Judy and I, my husband, we like, okay, where are we gonna move? Sometimes we think about living in Bali, but we just don't find. It's not about the place. If you think the place itself, you can maybe find better places. But it's about the community, right?
Yeah.
So talking about this topic of community, I read about your program, which is, can you just share about how did you come up with this idea? I'm quite sure there was a lot of true experience, but what was the milestone that made you have this idea of creating your program? It's called Mindful Life.
Remindful Life.
Remindful Life.
Yes. Well, it started when we were at a point in our lives. So we had run a fashion accessories brand for almost 15 years. And we were in this space of really like a pivotal point of, you know, what is this going to look like? The kids were 8 and 11 at the time, and we decided that we wanted to have a little bit more flexibility as a family. And so we embarked on a bit of a journey trying self-directed learning. And so we found a company that had an international program, and we talked as a family and we decided that we were going to try this. So this would allow our family to move around if we wanted, to move back to Canada, to travel. And so we started on this journey, and it really just changed my outlook on so many things. It was a huge transformation for our family, for our kids, for us as parents, and then for all of us together. And that's when I started to think about whether I wanted to continue in the business we were doing or to start something new. So that's kind of when it started percolating. And then a couple of years in, as I started to see how our family dynamic was shifting and how it was changing, then I started to think about, okay, how could I help other people if they wanted to make some type of a transition?
Yeah.
And so that's where Remindful Life was born. In our program with the self-directed learning, we had what was called a self-directed consultant. And so she helped us and, kind of gave us a little bit of a guide as to, what could this look like, and as we moved through it, and it was really helpful. And so then that's what I wanted to kind of offer to other people, is that there's this idea, we can end up with a very fixed idea of how life looks, but actually we have a lot more control over how we move through it, I think, than sometimes we even think we do. And that's where I started Remindful Life.
Oh, that's great. And who do you think that Remindful Life would help the most? What kind of people do you think that it would be very helpful?
Yeah, good question. I think I started off thinking that it would help families that were wanting something different education-wise for their kids. And then what I realized is, after a couple of years doing it, is that the lessons that I learned with my kids as a parent is actually really helpful for anyone as a parent, because it's really starting to prepare children for, kind of like the future skills that are needed. So being resilient, being more adaptable, being confident, understanding your interests and your passions, learning how to follow them, be a critical thinker. And so it was a lot of those things that through this process, I learned it through self-directed learning with my kids, but I think it's things that could be a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
So I think it's really anyone that's kind of, looking at the skills that they want their kids to have, and, maybe looking at ways to explore it either in learning or just in daily life, because I think it can be helpful in both.
Yeah, I think it's going to be extremely helpful for everyone, your approach, especially now with this AI invasion.
Yeah.
Because if you think right now how the world is, and the jobs that we have currently, and if you try to project your life and the scenario of the world in 10 years, how it's going to look like, which jobs it's going to stand.
Yeah, they're going to be different.
It's like currently the educational system is completely outdated.
Yes.
They are teaching the same thing they taught to my grandmother.
Yeah.
But the world is not the same.
No. Yeah. And that's where I was seeing the biggest gap, that it was, as I saw the kids exploring on their own, they were doing things with more innovation, more creativity, more of their own style than I had seen them doing when they were in school.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have that capacity. They're seeing it happen in the world around them. And I think it's just, like you said, I think school is outdated in how they're approaching it.
Yeah.
And things are changing so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Things are changing very much, and if don't step up, because we cannot just wait until the system change, because to change any system, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So I will not wait. I will not enroll my daughter in a school which I think that's going to be outdated, if you're not to bring
Yes.
value to her life,
Yeah.
I want to enroll her in a school that can teach her the basic things that I think it work, but I will really guide her to an approach that I truly believe that's going to focus on the skills that she really needs when she reaches this working age, or not just for work, but for life, because we really need to learn these skills, like how to be resilient, how to be focused, how to really have things done, how to live in this environment of remotely work, remotely living. Like we don't have to lock ourselves in a miserable place. Minus 10 degrees. Why? If you can just sit by the beach and enjoy your life.
Yeah, totally. And there's just many ways to do it now. There's many ways. I think we're, as a society, we're seeing how people work differently and in different environments, and that's okay. Like, it's fine that it's different, and it can be quite confronting and uncomfortable for people to see life differently, And I think as soon as you start to kind of open up your mind to think that, wow, like there really are a lot of different possibilities, that's when you start to see even more. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, when I read your program and your story, I got really excited, and I could really get related with everything that you have experienced, because it's very similar to what I have been through.
Yes.
But my kids are still very small, so you are a step ahead of me, really thinking about how you're going to help them, and not just them, but helping other people. And I think it's actually a great timing with all this tech revolution.
Yes, I do.
And I think people should not waste their time, but really focus on people programs that will really help themselves and their children. And how do you see Remindful Life in the next years?
That's a really good question. I because there has been such a need in Bali, I've been really focusing on creating the community here, offering workshops and programs and mentoring here. But I really do feel, I think the people that come here are already kind of halfway there. They're already, leaving their home countries, looking for something new, which is great. I think that's the type of person that Bali brings. But I think there's a whole world out there of people that can't envision life any differently. And that's where I'd like to see Remindful Life going, is a little bit more to like global awareness around the issue of school and change and family life and family dynamics. And I'd like to do that through kind of more public speaking, larger events, kind of get a bigger reach, is where I would like to head. More online accessibility, more programs online. There's a lot of programs out there right now that are targeting different aspects of childhood development and learning and parenting and family, but it's still all quite disconnected. So I would also like to see ways that we can start bringing those things together. So, but like you said, I think it is the perfect timing right now. I think, one, with the pandemic, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes to what are we doing? What does it look like? Is it helpful? Is it good for the future? And technology. It's crazy. You look at AI and how it's changing and what kids are doing, and I find it exciting. I think it's a great time. And I think it's a great time for kids to really shine when it comes to creativity and innovation. And I think that's what AI pushes. It's taking the role away of these very robotic tasks, and we're allowed to really, birth these beings that are, thinking differently. And I think that's the age that we're going into.
Yeah, I think this has a great potential. And I think it was the perfect timing, because, as you mentioned, the pandemic, like countries like Brazil, where remote work was such an unknown thing. When I moved to London and I started working, I was working for a startup, and okay, what is the office? Like, that was the office, but I don't have to. I didn't have to go every day, so I could work from a cafe. Or I could work from home. I'm like, okay, but how can I concentrate?
Yeah.
Okay, because you don't learn, and then
Yes.
that
Totally.
in many countries, people were raised to work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And they have been raised in this box.
Yep.
And you grow up with this limited mindset. You as a child, your parents tell you, oh, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be an engineer, you're gonna be a lawyer, you're gonna be a dentist, and then you just follow this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go. But there's so much,
Yeah.
so many options,
Yeah.
so many creative people in this world, and they are all being raised in those boxes to become things that they
Not so interested in.
enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think with the pandemic, people really got to understand a little bit more of the option of working with remotely, with the option of even homeschooling, so you can really notice better what your child is good at, and many other things. And
I was just going to add to that. And I think that when that different way of living, working, learning is, you actually have to really develop different skills to manage it. So if you are going to be working remotely, you have to be able to manage yourself, your emotions, your health. Like there's all of these things that I think you're not going to a workplace and somebody's giving you this outline. It's your own motivation, your own discipline. How do you take care of yourself? How do you really feel good? And in order to do that, it is a lot of, how do you take care of your body? How do you move every day? How do you take care of your mental health? And it's all of those things that really have to be a part of our foundation, which is also not happening in schools, or not happening enough, for sure.
yes, it's very interesting. And I think Remindful Life can really help people, especially people who doesn't know what to do with their children.
Yeah.
In this new AI age,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very helpful. And what it's your words for people who are listening to us right now, and they are a little bit concerned and don't know how to change their lives, where to go, how to move. How can you inspire them, and which tools do you think would be helpful to take this first step?
I think probably the first thing is just true curiosity. Asking yourself questions, really thinking about them, and not kind of dismissing it. Or what is success? Like really diving deep into those. Like, what does it mean for you? And often that's where a lot of our answers come, is that when we do our own self-reflection and we think back to, what were, big moments in my life, and how did I feel, and how did I react, and what does that mean? It's a lot of that self-reflection and self-awareness that really will guide your journey with your kids. But it's hard work to do, like it's not always an easy process. But I think that's the first step, is real curiosity, and like the curiosity that comes with, having your kids around, and actually, what are they interested in? And I think sometimes the things that are weird and unusual, and that you think like that isn't, something that kids normally do or play with, or how they act, those are their gifts. Like those are the things that we need to harness and hold on to. And so being curious about that, asking questions, getting your kids talking, not trying to formulate something for them, but rather giving them the opportunity to explore and expand and be curious and discover and experiment. And I think if we can start with those things, I think that's a really good step forward, for sure.
Yeah, amazing words. I totally agree with curiosity. I think a life without curiosity, it's nothing. Without curiosity, you have nothing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a curiosity, you will not try anything new.
Yeah.
You'll not explore, you'll not discover anything. So if you want to really step out and really face AI, I think she's here to help you. I think her program, it's amazing and can really help a lot of people out there. And don't be afraid of AI. AI is here to help us. We just need to learn how to live with this.
Yes.
And learning the right skills.
Mm-hmm.
So Remindful Life is?
Yes.
What can you say about Remindful Life to facing the AI age?
Yeah, I think Remindful Life is a way of approaching it differently, where you can actually really see how these things enrich our lives rather than harm us, or not something that we should be scared of, but rather live into, really appreciate the technology that is around us and how do we manage with it. So yeah, we're just trying to support people through it and giving them a chance to feel the disorientation or the confusion, because it's part of it. It's part of the journey, right? That you're going to feel like, oh, something's not quite right, and I don't know how to do this. Of course, we've all been in that position and will continue to be as the world changes. That it's really providing people a safe space to talk about it, to explore it, and to be supported in many different ways. So
yeah, this is a really transformative experience, and I'd like to thank you very much to come and bring this up to us. I think we all have so much to learn from you, with you.
Yes.
And thank you very much to share.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
With us, and thank you for you to stay here with us. If you want to step up and really transform your life, the way that you live, and really learn skills that will help you have a happier life, just contact Jeneen. And here I'm gonna put here the link to check her website, her social medias, and Remindful Life. Thank you. See you until the next episode.